Good evening. I'm Mike Marza as we take another look back at more days of testimony in the trial of Sean Diddy Combs. Today, his former personal assistant, Jonathan Perez, was on the stand, recalling the times that he was called on to purchase drugs for Combs, he said. That testimony taking place as Kanye West then made a surprise appearance to the courthouse, and a juror was dismissed. Or was he dismissed? A lot to get to. In just a moment, we're going to be joined by ABC News legal contributor Bernarda Vilona to dig deeper into everything that unfolded in court today. But first up, Darla Miles with a recap from Lower Manhattan.
Friday morning, one hip-hop icon supporting another. Kanye West arriving in a Maybach at federal court in Lower Manhattan, where his longtime friend, Sean Diddy Combs, is standing trial for sex trafficking and racketeering. Eyewitness News, the only news outlet inside of an empty 23rd floor courtroom for a period of time, finding West standing in the middle of Combs' oldest son and godbrother, along with 2 bodyguards and 4 court officers. The gravity of the trial not lost on West at all, standing directly in front of the closed-circuit monitor that's transmitting from the 26th floor courtroom and staring with a loving intensity, awaiting Combs' return to his seat during a break. But West abruptly leaving after about 10 minutes as more people entered the courtroom, which felt like an interruption to a private moment for the rapper there in support of his friend. West leaving the courthouse just as the testimony of Jonathan Perez was getting underway, another former personal assistant to Sean Combs. Also testifying under immunity, Perez describing how he once came across a video of Jane having sex with another man, presumably during a hotel night, and then reported it to Combs' chief of staff, Christina Coram. Jurors hearing an audio recording of Coram about 6 months later, with concerns the video had become public, asking Perez, "It is out, and I just need to know step by step where you found it. Don't leave anything out, please." The 35-year-old also telling the court that he too secured drugs for Combs and set up hotel rooms for what he knew to be king nights. The days-long drug-fueled encounters with male escorts, helping Jane pick out what she was going to wear. Defense attorneys asking, "Would you look for her lingerie?" Perez answering yes. The goal was her to look good for Mr. Combs. Perez again answering yes. Did you ever get the feeling that she was hesitant of joining the king nights? No. Defense attorneys asking, did it appear to you that she was always willing? Perez again answering yes. Now, let's talk about the issue with juror number 6. What is happening right now with the dismissal of this juror is basically he doesn't live in the state of New York. He lives in New Jersey. The court citing the fact that he gave conflicting answers on his jury questionnaire, saying he had effectively a residence in the Bronx. He receives mail in the Bronx, but really lives in New Jersey. Lots of objections to this dismissal by defense attorneys for Sean Combs, saying it's really disrupting the diversity of the jury, because this is a 41-year-old black man. Judge Arun Subramanian says he will reserve the right to change his mind over the weekend. But at this point, that juror number 6 will be dismissed and will be subbed out with alternate number 1, which is a white male.
Our thanks to Darla Miles, as always, joined now by Bernarda Vilona. A lot to get to today. I mean, as we finished up another week of testimony. Let's begin right there where Darla left off. So this juror number 6, a lot was talked about. We had conversations about what was going to happen with this juror. It's still unclear, though, as we go into the weekend. Is the juror dismissed? Is he not dismissed? Take us through how it all unfolded and where we leave it now on this Friday evening.
Yeah, so Mike, even right before I even forget, I have to tell you that when I returned into the courtroom after the judge had asked for the room to be clear for the audience, the public, everyone to step out with the exception of the attorney Sean Combs and the U.S. Marshals, when we returned back and were waiting for the judge to take the bench, Sean Combs turns around and he mouths off twice, trying to get a black man off. Talking about the juror number 6, who is a black man. He said they're trying to get a black man off.
Sean Combs said that.
Sean Combs said that, turned around and talked to us in the audience and said that twice. He said that. So in terms of what happened, because all of this broke down in the afternoon. So we had known from earlier in the week that there was an issue with a juror. We didn't know exactly what the issue was. There were several rumors as what it could be, and then thinking, is it something that was posted? Was it social media? And then we got word that it may be a residency issue, and the judge left it unanswered until finally today, Friday, when he was about to end court, when he decided to address the juror issue. But before he even ended court, at first thing this morning, he asked both sides, do you want me to bring in this juror so we can ask him some more questions so we can clarify the record? The defense said, no, we don't want you to bring him and ask him more questions. We think that the record is clear as to where his answers stand. Fast forward to the end of the day, the judge wants to deal with the juror issues, and he says, based on looking at the record, that of course he has a lot of issues as to the credibility, the candor of this juror in terms of whether he was honest, because he did give several inconsistent answers to where he resides. Does he reside in the Bronx? Does he reside in New Jersey?
Which for people I don't understand, it's a big deal because you have to live in New York.
Correct. You have to qualify to be a juror in the Southern District. Specifically, we're dealing with him. He said he resided in the Bronx. That's what qualified him to be eligible to come in for jury service. Now, what the judge got to the end of it was like, look, if you're willing to provide these inconsistencies to basic questions, then how can I trust that you're going to keep the integrity of jury deliberations and following the law and applying the facts to the law? Like, I questioned that, and we can't chance the integrity of this process. So he said in his discretion, which he has sole discretion in order to excuse a juror before they start deliberations, that it's better to be safe by actually excusing this juror. But then there were arguments by the defense attorneys. 3 of them stood up and gave their piece as to why he shouldn't be excused, and presenting great concern that by dismissing this black juror, that you are messing with the diversity of the jury. And, you know, you can say that why is it that the prosecutor now wants to get rid of this black juror? Is it because of signals that he was given during the trial where he stops taking notes, or he's smirking, or giving the side eye? So you just don't know. Either way, we don't know. Is he off or not? Which is a huge concern, Mike, because we're reporting it, and so are other outlets and YouTubers and bloggers. So you know what the internet does. They're going to do their own research and find out who is this juror, and it's possible that he may have inappropriate contact with media outlets or read about the case, which in the end puts us right back to Monday, and he can say, look, I've heard about the case, I read about the case, and they're talking about me, even though it's an anonymous jury.
Because the judge left it, when court wrapped up today, basically the judge left it with, I'll think about it over the weekend.
I'll think about it, and if anything changes my mind, I will let you know.
Interesting. So not definitive. So we'll see what happens.
Not definitive. So we'll see you on Monday.
All right. Kanye West shows up. So the jury is not supposed to know that he was there because Kanye never made it in the actual courtroom, right?
Yes. So just to be clear, in terms of when you go to the courthouse and if you want to watch the trial, there's 2 different ways of watching the trial. The main courtroom, which is on the 26th floor, that is where Sean Combs, the defense attorneys and the judge and the jury is. That's the main room. So for the main room, there are a limited amount of seats.
How many seats, like roughly? Like how many seats?
So I will tell you this. For the press, there are 21 seats.
Okay.
For the public, there are 14 seats. So, of course, people line up the day before out of the public to try to be one of the 14 people to be able to get one of those 14 seats. Then there's a row for the prosecution. There's a row for whoever the witness attorney is. On the other side, there's a row for the defense. There's 2 rows for the family of Sean Combs, either 2 or 1 row. And then there's a row for the federal courthouse press. So those are the people that are allowed into the main courtroom. Now, there's an overflow room, and usually there's 1 or 2. In the overflow room, one's on the 24th floor. Today, there was also one on the 23rd floor. Anybody from the public can come into the courthouse and go to the overflow room. In the overflow room, you are watching a TV screen, and you're listening to what is going on. You can't really see what's going on inside of the courtroom by looking at the screen because it doesn't give you a video feed of the jury, and you get limited view of the witness as well as the defense table because you can't see them from afar, and the exhibits are like small little dots. Gotcha. So where Kanye went, where Ye went, first we were told he was going to go to the 24th floor. Went to the 24th floor. He wasn't there. Then we heard they opened up another overflow room on the 23rd floor, and that's where he ended up going, but within a few minutes he got up and left. But what's important to know, Mike, about this is that he never made it to the 26th floor. The defense is allowed to make a list of people that they will allow into the courtroom, and that list is given to the court marshals first thing in the morning. The courtroom deputy is given to them first thing in the morning. Whose name wasn't on the list? Kanye West. So
what do you make of that? I mean,
the defense didn't want him in the courtroom.
Yeah,
obviously they did not want him in the courtroom because there was a row and there was space. So if you wanted him to come into the courtroom, all you had to do was put his name on the list, and then you would have allowed him inside of the courtroom.
So a lot of the internet sleuths and people have been, trying to figure this out, right? What's the connection? Is there any connection between Ye and the case? We heard testimony yesterday alluding to this famous rapper that may be involved in some of this testimony. Is it Kanye West? People were thinking.
And the internet did what it did, and they were able to find out that his wife's birthday is in January, and that in January of 2024, they did celebrate the birthday in Las Vegas. And he is a millionaire, billionaire, does own a plane. So the internet did what it did. But it hasn't been mentioned in the courtroom. The jury does not know, one, that Kanye West was in the building. They probably know by now. But they also do not know that the famous rapper that has been alluded to is Kanye West.
Which is what the assumption is.
That is the assumption, yes.
Does that change I mean, it's interesting that the defense would not have him on the list, since we saw in the pictures
the list
and they
to
were
get
tight,
into the courtroom,
right, to be able to have access to watch it in person there in the courtroom. And we know that Kanye and Diddy and Sean Combs were close at one point, right? I don't know what the status of that relationship is right now, but as an attorney and you're looking at this case, does that just add to the circus type atmosphere, or what does that do when you try to assess what's going on?
I want to say that if I were the prosecutor, if I were the government in this case, I absolutely wouldn't want him in the courtroom, because he's a wild card and you don't know what the man is going to say. You don't want to risk that there's a mistrial. Imagine he gets up and says something crazy in front of the jury or when the witness is testifying. That is a huge risk of a mistrial. Now, actually, the same thing goes for the defense. They're like, yeah, you probably came to support Sean Combs, but we also don't know what you're going to say. You know, he's a firecracker. So I think both sides may have been on the same page in the sense of that it's not worth having Kanye West inside of the courtroom. Prosecution is like, look, you're a wild card, but you're also a distraction. And I think your presence will try to maneuver the jury into one way or another. So, and the defense is like, look, we just don't know where Kanye West's mind is on any given day, so we can't risk that he gets up there and say something that can probably inculpate Sean Combs.
Well, it's certainly got us talking about it to that point. And it's also interesting, I think for the first time in a while, we got the sense of, because when you see Sean Combs in the sketches, you've seen him in person, he's a defendant.
Yes.
He's on trial for very serious crimes. But outside, there is this life that we're learning about with the the concerts and stuff like this. And then we see Kanye West roll up in the Maybach and the whole sort of energy that brings and that world brings when you're talking about that level of a superstar. It's interesting to see it play out outside of the proceeding where Sean Combs is fighting for his freedom.
Exactly, and you know, the jury is supposed to not pay attention to what's going on outside the courtroom. In fact, at the end of the day, the judge reminded this jury, because they were going home for the weekend, that if you see a notification on your phone or on the TV or on the internet, scroll right on by, because I do not want you listening or reading anything having to do with the case. So they're supposed to confine their decision making to what happens inside of the courtroom. I mean, it begs the question that maybe in a case like this, you would have wanted the jury to be sequestered, meaning that they're not allowed to go home, that they're kept in a hotel with limited amounts of access to phones and to internet and to the television, because you don't want their decision making to be affected by outside noise.
Yeah, certainly something we'll watch, and depending on how the verdict goes. So let's talk about the testimony today. We heard from this personal assistant, Jonathan Perez. What was he able to do when it comes to this case?
So Jonathan Perez Perez, first off, why is he even relevant, right? So he was the personal assistant of Sean Combs during the period of 2021 up until September of 2024. So first off, when he took the stand, he was given immunity to testify. So any crime that he probably would have spoken about, he wouldn't be prosecuted for. So he gets his free pass, with the exception if he intentionally gives a misleading statement or commits perjury, he can be prosecuted for that. So what is the relevance of the personal assistant? This personal assistant, Mr. Perez, testified that some nights he helped set up these hotel nights, these freak-offs. He's the one who set up the hotel room, who also cleaned up after one of these hotel nights, the baby oil and the mess in the room. But in terms of the delivery to get that room set up for this crime, right, sex trafficking and transportation to engage in prostitution, he was setting up with the ingredients in terms of the red light, the baby oil, the Astroglide, Sean Combs' bag with narcotics in it.
Which is key.
Exactly, key. So they get him on the transportation to engage in prostitution in terms of also the sex trafficking in terms of setting up these freak-offs, right? So that's one purpose. The second purpose they got him is that at times he would deliver drugs and money. So the delivering of drugs is key. Why? Because with the racketeering conspiracy, one of the predicate acts have to deal with possession with intent to deliver and distribute. And here you have your personal assistant delivering the narcotics for one of these freak-offs or whatever it's for. So you got him on that. Also, you had him that during the night that Jane alleges that Sean Combs beat her, this same assistant was the one who Sean Combs FaceTimed during the incident, even though he says that he did not see the face of Jane, so doesn't know whether he that he actually hit her or not, but just to corroborate some of Jane's testimony. Also testified about getting money for Sean Combs and how some of the expenses, these personal expenses having to deal with these hotel nights, was placed on the company card. So again, the Combs enterprise for the racketeering part. And also one of the last things is having to deal with KK, the chief of staff, that there was this one incident where they found a video of a hotel night on an iPad, and that he saw it and he brought it to the attention of Sean Combs and to KK, and KK reached out to him and started asking him, I need to know everything that actually happened. And that KK recorded that conversation. So again, putting KK in the middle of this, that the chief of staff for Sean Combs is the one who does the dirty work and the cleaning up, because why are you recording him? So he brought out a lot of testimony. The defense was also able to use them to his benefit in the sense of, look, you've never seen Sean Combs with a gun. You've never seen him with commit an act of violence. You've never saw in the years that you knew Jane, that Jane seemed that she was not willing to participate.
I mean, that's an important part for the defense, right? Because they're trying to say that she was just in love with him. She wanted to participate to please her partner, her lover. And so take me through that testimony, because when she's being cross-examined, she gave some answers that the defense was trying to get to her and get her testimony to lean towards, right?
Yeah, so I think, you know, it's a wild card of what this jury is going to do with Jane, because she stands in a different position than Cassie, because Cassie, we know, was brutally beaten on several different occasions. And that type of force and that type of coercion is to a different level that I think the normal person can be like, oh, no, 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 she was in an abusive relationship, and that abusive relationship led to the coercion for her to engage in these acts, right? But Jane, there was only one act of violence, just one act. And we're talking about 3 years of engaging in these sexual acts. And the thing is, her response always was like, I wanted to please my lover, so whatever to make him happy, even though at times she's like, I don't want to do these hotel nights. I don't want to do these hotel nights, through text message and through notes and through conversations. So while she's saying one thing, she's doing something else. So I think it's going to be difficult for the jury to grasp the sex trafficking charge when it comes to her. Not the transportation to engage in prostitution, because it's very clear that even consenting to engage in these sexual acts, it's still against the law of having to pay a prostitute and bring them across state lines for you to engage in these hotel nights.
We'll see how it shakes out, because back on Monday, it would, I know we're going to run for this conversation about 30 seconds. Do we have a preview of what we expect next week yet, or no?
So we do have a preview. There's going to be agents that come in to testify about certain summary charts, and those summary charts are supposed to make it much easier for the jury to be able to comb out through these text messages and through these hotel stays and through these travel records and through these financial records, and make it much easier for them to understand. So you'll have a witness to testify to these records. But I did hear the name of Brendan Paul. And Brendan Paul, if I'm not mistaken, and again, I have to look back at this, I believe Brendan Paul was the man that was arrested in Florida who was with Sean Combs, and he was arrested on being in possession of narcotics. So if that is the Brendan Paul that is testifying, I see him testifying under immunity and testifying about the drug delivery, which again goes to the racketeering conspiracy, the enterprise, and the predicate act. So that will be a problem for Sean Combs if that is the Brendan Paul that they are calling to testify.
So many twists and turns. We know you'll stay on top of it. As always, Bernarda, great to see you.
Yes, Mike.
Court resumes on Monday, so stay with Eyewitness News and ABC7NY for any new updates. We also have a real-time blog following the details from court.